Welcome from the hell, hot Arizona. It's starting to get hot here.
Hey, it's been beautiful over here. Weather, I can't argue. It's not hot. It's not cold right now. It's really good.
Hey,
Uh,
we're going to start a new section in the beginning, and it's called "What the," because what the f, something just our pet peeve. So I'm going to introduce. Here's mine, right? I love crumble cookies, and I tell you, I got to stay away from it because I started looking at the calorie content. One of those cookies, Larry, they're like 650 calories, and I was wondering why we're gaining weight. They're like, have you had one, Ron? A crumbles cookie?
no, I don't want one.
Don't do it because you'll be addicted. I swear
Oh,
they put crack in those things.
yeah.
So anyway, here's what I've noticed now. We're kind of going to a cashless society, like everywhere you go using credit cards, especially with the COVID, we started using credit cards, right? And then hardly anyone carries cash anymore. And I noticed that, when I go to pay for something like the crumbles cookie, at the end, they flip the screen. It's like an iPad. And they said, okay, two questions. One, your email address, where you want the receipt, whatever. And then the second one is how much you want to tip. I go, okay, that's odd. I tip them. And then I went to a shaved ice place locally. Same thing. I told my wife, okay, you tip them, but you haven't got any service. And then I went outside to eat it, and I go, this is the worst shaved ice I've ever had. I mean, trying to get ice out of there, and the ice cream felt like there was like little chunks in there, like it was old and everything. So, I mean, that's what I don't get. Why do we give a tip before we even, taste the products, get the service? What's going on with that? I don't get it.
Yeah, that I got a beef with that too, because a lot of times you go to a restaurant and they'll if you have a party of so many people, and I get that a lot of people really mess over servers, but I still think service is service, and I'm tipping before I get the service. And it's like, well, isn't that supposed to be dependent on how they did for you? So I go back and forth, but I go back. Here's my other thing that I go over is a lot of servers don't make a lot of money, so I don't mind tipping. Okay. When it goes to the $15 an hour, are we still going to hit that tip too? Because that's going to change things a bit. And I'm not against tipping because that's how people make their living. But
I mean, I know they can't, there's no way to do it, but it's like, in restaurants, I always tip. I mean, even if someone's not a great server, because I know that they're not making money, but when I go to a cookie place and I go to a shaved ice where it's your job, I mean, we didn't get tipped in martial arts. Like, Larry, did you ever get tips like, hey, sensei or seafood, let me give you a tip. That was an awesome class, right? But yet
McDonald's, you're not tipping and they're serving you. So, is it per establishment, or, I mean, how's that dynamic going to go, or
yeah, if you're watching, chime in. I'd like to hear what you guys think about it, because it's everywhere I go now. And you kind of feel like, it's in your face, and it doesn't go to 15%. It like goes to 18 or 20%. And you're going, I'm going to add another 20% on the cookies now. What's with that?
Well, let me throw another
Yeah.
ball at you. I've been, sorry, Larry, I'm hogging the screen, but my travel, I'm all over the place. So I've got to stay at hotels. So you'll get room service. And I don't know how many times they brought up room service and it said, you want to sign? And it says tip. And I'll go and I'll give 15, 20%. And then I go inside and I go, whoa, they already tipped, or they took gratuity out. So then that guy walked away from 30 to 40% tip. I was, after they left, I just thought, man, that's not cool. It's that one stung a couple of times. So,
And if you've been on a cruise, I mean, it's customary. These guys make a living off your tips. So we always tip well. But I've seen people who don't tip. And then I go like, really? I mean, these guys are, coming from other countries where they don't have money, and they're out there sending it to their family, and you guys aren't tipping because you think that when you're doing the cruise, it's all inclusive. That again, same thing when we go to our Cancun. You don't have to tip servers or whatever, but we still do. I mean, because they give great service. It's like I told my son once when we were in Cancun, we were on the putt golf course, and then his wife was like wanting a glass of wine. So we asked the people who were managing the little putt golf course, said, hey, is there any way we can get some wine? And he goes, oh yeah, sure, senor. He gets on the phone, right, or speaker, and you see this guy in a tuxedo. He comes down on a tray with wine, and then my wife had a Diet Coke, and I'm going, only in Mexico. I said, you don't see that, Chris, in the United States. They won't do it. I mean, yeah, tip them, because that, again, that's above what we would think is just normal service, right?
But I've had people when I'm in Europe almost put their arm on me to stop me because I go to tip, and they're like, no, it's okay. It's included, but I still feel I should give, I don't know.
I look at it like, I mean, I cook a lot, right? I mean, I love to cook. And so we don't go out too often. So my wife always gives me the stink eye when we go out because I order like the entire table worth of food, because I'll just, I want to try it all. I want to try every single dish, right? So our bills are always pretty high when we do go out and eat because we don't go out that often. So I want to experience the whole thing. And, I'm kind of a high tipper, I tip on the high end, but the assumed tip always gets me, you know what I mean? Like maybe we're with a party, as soon as we're at like 6 people, all of a sudden it's assumed that we've got to, automatically tip 20% when I might have even tipped 25%. But I feel kind of jaded about that forced tip and also just that assumed tip that it's just like automatically there,
Yeah. Have you guys ever done this? You go out with a bunch of people and everybody's like, all right, I'm leaving. And they put their money down on the table. And then you go and you count it up and you're like, wait a minute. Nobody paid for tip.
And you're stuck with paying it all.
Yeah.
Yep. My wife hates that. Every event, every camp, every whatever we have, right? She's always like, we're not the last one to pay. We are not the last one to pay. Separate checks. You know what I mean? Like she's like on top of it like a shark, man.
Yeah.
Crazy. So yeah. So is this going to be a regular thing? The what the F?
Every week we're going to have a what the F topic before we start into our guest or whatever. So that was this week's. I get off my chest. I know Larry's got a good one for next week. So that again, it's going to be one of the things I'm going to go, yeah, that really gets me, man.
Oh, I'm an expert complainer. I can come up with a lot of things. I got a black belt in complaining. All right. So I'm going to switch it. Any more what the F's?
No, I think we covered that. That's pretty good. I got off my chest.
Okay. All right. You might have seen it from our art card that Larry made up for us. We're going to do quotes today. And I know everybody has them. And this is the cool thing about it is because what I do is if I go to seminars, I go to different places, I collect quotes and there's plenty of coffee table books that have them that you can get, but I like martial artists a lot because it's almost like a code they live by. And, so I'll usually say, hey, you got any favorite quotes? And I've collected a lot of them over the years. And I got a whole big data bank full of them, but I keep several of them that I'll usually like just force on people. So I'm going to force some of these on you. So I've asked you guys to grab some too. So let's just rotate around if that's cool. So
yeah.
Can I start?
Why don't you start?
Okay. So some of them are direct quotes. Some of them are little mini stories. I even have a song lyric. Okay. So I'm just going to run with it.
Did you say a song?
It's some lyric from a song. All right, I'll start with that. I don't want to get religious, and I'm not going to sing it to you.
Oh, come on, man.
But it's a religious song, and it's our thoughts are prayers. And I look at this like a quote. It's our thoughts are prayers, and we're always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Listen to what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there, and every thought becomes a prayer. And I really took that one in because I mean, your thoughts are prayers. If you're thinking about it, and if it's negative, you're praying that way. So I just talked about me being the most negative guy, but I really, really try to embrace that and think of that. If I'm starting to go too negative, there's times I'll draw from that. And I just heard it at a mass one day. We were at church, and that one, they just started singing it, and I was like, I like that a lot. So I looked it up, and I got the lyrics to it, and it's not a quote per se. So I'm starting our quote thing without a quote. That's it. Our thoughts are prayers.
But you think about it, and we taught this in our school all the time in martial arts schools, teaching the kids, watch your thoughts because your thoughts become your words. Watch your words because your words becomes your actions. Watch your actions because your actions becomes your character, but as soon as your destiny. It all starts by standing guard, to the entry of your mind and how we control that, because thoughts really is how we manifest things, and when I share my quote mine later, I mean, it's truly a way that we manifest. So if we have negative thoughts, we sort of bring that into our life, right? If
Yeah.
you look at some of the most positive people around that I've been, well, like Dave Kovar, right? I mean, he's just always real. He's a positive kind of guy, and you manifest those kind of people into your life, right? I mean,
Yeah.
So-
And so I think it rings true. The same thing that you're saying, that the lyrics that I found is, it's just, you're the keeper of the gate, and you got to be cognitive of what you're letting in and what you're not, so that's it. So, all right, Cliff, give me one.
Okay, so this, I'm going to read it just so I don't screw it up, because so this one I had this plaque, and it was when I was in, we went into, and I can't remember the church, but we happened to go to Sedona. It was the first time Deb and I went, and we went in this church, the one that's kind of up on a hill. I can't think of the name of it, but it's just a little tiny church. We went in there, and I was, it was just quiet and serene in there. And I went to the bookstore, and I found this plaque, and it says, "To the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you may be their entire world." Right.
Oh, wow.
And it's so reminded me sometimes, like, what, you've had that guy, I had a student once, when he passed away, and I was doing a course. It was a Satori. It was like an awakening course about it wasn't a religion, but more spiritually, like connecting with our spirit and making that connection with the creator. And so we meditated, we learned how to do these, and he was going through cancer. And so I was working with him and teaching him to meditate. And then toward the end, he came in and we had a talk, and he said, Sifu, he goes, "I'm at peace, and thank you for helping me." Right. And then when I went to his wife, when he passed away, he said, Sifu, he wanted you to speak at his funeral. And I was like, whoa, okay. And I came in, and then some people were in their uniforms, and his one request, he wanted to be buried in his uniform. Right. And I was like, wow, and then when I went and looked at all the pictures that they had up of him training and all that, and people would come up to me that I know, "Oh, you're Sifu, you must be Sifu Linderman, or, we talked about you all the time." And I was like, whoa, I never even knew it. I didn't know how much it meant to him. To me, it's like, he's just a student, right?
Yeah.
And so I put that plaque up to always remind me that you could be touching someone who needs your help, and you're their whole world right now. And to them, don't even acknowledge that. And so that's
I use
why
that.
it's been an important quote for me personally.
Yeah.
You just made me think of, all right, you were with Guru Dan as long as I have. Do you remember that plaque? In fact, you made me think about it. I almost wanted to jump up and run in the other room. I just found a plaque, and it's broken, but I modeled it after the one that Guru or Sifu Dan Inosanto used to have in the school. And did you ever see the key to Jeet Kune Do lies behind this door, that plaque? Do you
Yeah, I
remember that?
think he used to have that hanging up in there, right?
Yeah. And then you open the little door, and it was a mirror.
Yeah.
And you made me think of plaque with that. But yeah, no, it's awesome that you could have brought that to that guy. And yeah, the impact that you have on some people, and you never realize it. I had a little similar incident. I had a student, Chris Goebel. Some of the people out there listening might remember Chris. Chris is famous because there's a video of him arm wrestling a guy, and his arm snapped. You ever see that video? Where his arm breaks, arm wrestling a guy? That's Chris. Well, Chris passed away. And I loved Chris, and I never knew the impact when I went, and his family. And what I did is I made him an instructor in a casket. I gave him his papers, and yeah, I spent a lot of time with that guy, and I never knew the impact, because when I went to the funeral, a lot of people approached me and they're like, "You're Ron, you're Ron Balicki," and I was like, wow, I didn't think I affected this man's life as much as I did. So
Yeah. And so it always reminded me, like, I've had so many stories I could share that, I'm like, wow, that this meant so much to them, or how they looked up to me. And I didn't even think about it. And so I've always taught my instructors, look, you have to maintain an image in how you relate to people, because they look up to you. I mean, if all of a sudden you're doing something, that's really away from the norm, on how you're changing your appearance, they want to do it too, because they're modeling you. So I said, you always have to remember that, because some people may not want their kids to be like that, right? So we have to keep a little bit of structure here, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's why I had that plaque up, and it's always in my mind, to keep remembering that. Okay,
I
Larry,
love that. I wanted to add to that too, real quick. I try to teach. I have two daughters, 11 and 16, and we try to always remind them to be kind to people and stuff. And going back to the tip thing, even, we'll go in, we got some coffee earlier, let's say one of our favorite local coffee places. And so as we were going in, I was, talking to people, they say, "Oh, how's your day going?" And I'm always like, "Fixing to be a lot better because of you," and they're just like, and it's like, yeah, I was like, man, I was kind of feeling down or whatever it was, and this is going to pick me up, or this is a special treat for my daughter, or whatever it is, just to let them know how special they are in our day. I had a short story on that. I remember years ago, I was getting like, I don't know, I think done on one of my cars, and I took it into one of these quicker places, and I met the guy, and I was like, "Man, you're a superhero." And he's like, "Just a grease monkey working the counter." You know what I mean? And I was like, "No, you're a freaking superhero." And he's like, "Well, why do you say that?" And I was like, "Well, it's simple, because I can change my own oil. I totally have the skills and the tools to do that, but I don't have as much time, because if I do that, it's taking time away from my family, and it's taking time away from my martial arts family. And so I like to help people set goals and crush them. And by you doing this, that allows me to spend more time with both of my families doing the things that they need to have done. So to me, you're a superhero, and you're saving people's lives." And he was like, "Oh, wow." So you could just see his eyes get like this big. Like, you're thinking, I'm just changing oil, right? No, it's bigger than that, right? Yeah. So, he might be a guy that you don't give gratuity to, right? You don't specifically give gratuity to the guys at the oil change place, but I try to at least give him a tip on a spiritual and mental level, I guess, if that makes sense.
And yet it costs you nothing to make that person affect them, right? It costs you nothing materially wise.
And in a way, you could call like certain people essential workers, and they might not listen, but he's essential in your life. So, yep. And it's cool that he made a difference that way. So Larry, give us it.
I think this one, honestly, like, I remember you sent us this list. Now, going into this, I read every morning, like Monday through Sunday, like every morning, 7 days a week. I read, wake up, try to get up as dark and early as I can and start reading and writing, because the house is quiet and it's just my time. And so I have probably about, if you guys are familiar with a bullet journal, but I have about 7 bullet journals, and every day has quotes based on what I read. And that's probably an entire topic for its own cast at some point in time. Yeah, I really, really enjoy quotes. I feel like it's words, of wisdom that are coming from people that have, gone through something that we may or may not be going through just yet. And sometimes I read these quotes and I think, I don't know if I agree with that, or I don't know if I like it as much or whatever, but I write it down anyway. And then about 3 or 4 days later, somebody's telling me about a situation or something they're going through. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, hold on. And I go back to my book, 4 days before, and I go, this wasn't meant for me. It was meant for you. Right. And so that's something that's kind of just helped me pass it on, I guess, to other people. But on Ron's list of quotes, I think there was a Confucius quote that really stuck out to me. And I had read it ages ago, but it was prior to me writing, and doing all the journaling. So this is pretty awesome, though. It says, learn as though you would never be able to master it. Hold it as though you would be in fear of losing it. That just speaks volumes to me. I'm a lot like many of our Mars brothers and sisters they're distance learners, right? We've all been seeking Ron at workshops and seminars and everything else, and traveling great distances, going to California, whatever it is, to find this knowledge and be able to kind of absorb it and move ourselves up in skill set and rank, or whatever your goals are, right? And so I think there's a lot of us that are out there like that. And what we have to realize is that time as we know it is really, really precious. And so we honestly want to honor those moments, right? You know what I mean? With all of our instructors, our family, our friends, and everything, right? So I think that makes a big difference coming out of the quote. And on top of that, right, personally for me, I'm more of like a visual learner, right? So I pick up things pretty quick. If you show it to me, I'm usually like, I'm on, you know what I mean? But learning it on the spot really isn't the trick. It's retaining it and maintaining it across, of course, a period of time. And Guru Dan always talks about this. He's like, get really simple, right? But like keeping it, that's the true challenge. You know what I mean? And he's right. And for me personally, I really pride myself on remembering many things. But I got to work really hard sometimes to retain those things, because maybe working it or right now I'm focusing on something else or whatever it is. So honestly, I despise going into my notebook to remind myself what that drill is. Like, I take a lot of pride in remembering the sets and the series and just everything. But sometimes I got to do it. So I think the topic at some point in time here in the future might be the book of triangles, but this quote made me create a triangle for, if you want to call it retaining and maintaining triangle. It's drill it, teach it, apply it. And that's what I've been going through recently. So when I read the quote, it immediately grabbed me, you know.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll be going to your notebook the older you get. You'll be doing it even more often.
Paul's going to help me, right? Paul, you're going to help me.
You're actually going
I
to
saw
need your
comment.
students holding cue cards up there for you like this.
I've had to do that at least once or twice now on like some little edits that they wanted me to get in front of the camera and talk. And I was like, I hate pre-plan talking. I just want to just tape me while I'm teaching. Don't tape me while I'm trying to pre-plan a talk. Oh man.
Okay, I'm going to give one. All right. This is Werner von Braun. Basic research is what I'm doing when I don't know what I'm doing. I love that quote. And just think about it. Our whole martial art life is basic research. You know, if I'm looking at it, I'm just digging in, and people are, you know, people will just be like, aren't you done with that? I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing with it yet. And I just sit there and I just chew on it and chew on it and chew on it. And as soon as I heard this quote, it just grabbed me. Basic research is what I'm doing when I don't want to know what I'm doing. And it just rings true, I think, in all facets of life, but especially again in my martial art life. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, we do something new too. Like I remember one of the first time, you know, I got into photography, and my good friend Joel Grimes, he was on a show, Creative Live, which is all about, they have, you know, musicians, photographers. It's kind of an art deal. And I tuned in on it. And I remember, you know, seeing this cool thing. I go, what is that? Okay. It was composite photography. And I remember saying, I told my wife, I got to learn how to do that. That is so cool, man. I want to learn it. And I was watching, we were in Hawaii, and I was like watching it. Okay. I said, all right, let's go ahead. I'm going to put this on my iPad and I'm going to watch it on the plane home. So we're like watching it. He's going over the principles of photography. You know, the bigger the modifier, the softer the light, you know, when you bring, I'm like, yeah, I get that. All of a sudden he opens Photoshop and he's clicking this and that. We're like watching, and Deb looks at me and I'm looking at her and we're like, what the hell? You know, we're like totally lost. And I went home and I was like, okay, I need to learn how to cut someone out of a picture so I can do this stuff. And I remember I was like 10 o'clock and I came in bed at 3 a.m. I just tell my wife, I go, man, this is like really hard, man. I'm struggling, right? And I just thought I would never get it. I mean, I even brought a student over and said, hey, can you teach me how to do a cutout? Well, God, I mean, I evolved to that I can do them really quick. But now Photoshop has it where you can just beep, select subject, and it removes it out for you. I'm like, oh, wow. Now it comes out, right?
Larry, this is a Larry story. We're in Belgium. Do you remember this, Larry? And
which one? Which story from Belgium?
My student Joffrey's doing his website, so he's trying to resize these pictures and, you know, and put the border around it and everything. And he's doing one at a time. And Larry walks up and he looks at me and says, what are you doing? And, you know, Larry, his, you know, woohoo attitude, and Joffrey's very stern, and he goes, oh, I'm doing all these pictures, you know, and he goes, oh, here, just do this. And he goes, boom, and he goes, and did like 100 pictures in seconds. And he looked at Larry, he goes, what did he do? He did a couple hundred slow. He must have been doing it for months. And Larry, with a click of a button, just burned it. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
He wasn't happy. You think he would be happy, but he wasn't happy. So
Joffrey, he was kind of always serious when that time I went the trip with you.
Yeah.
So, hey, Larry, when you were there, did you get in Joffrey's place, he had that little machine, you know, with the food and items, and he had those little waffles.
Yeah.
Over it.
Yeah.
I was like constantly going to that machine. I must have gained 10 pounds from that trip. Because remember, Ron, these are so good, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that quote reminds me of something Guru Dan always said too. It's I can't remember which instructor he was talking to when he was, you know, talking to him about it, but he I think asked him, he said, you know, Manlong, how often do you train? And he was like, Dan, I train 24 hours a day, you know, and he's all like, and he's kind of like, it's just us. You can just tell me, like, you're really like, how many hours have you trained? He goes, 24 hours a day. I wake up early so that I can do my yoga for an hour, and that's training. And then I spend 30 minutes eating and digesting a healthy meal. And then I spend this and that time and this and that time. I work on footwork. I write my lesson plans. I eat a healthy meal at dinner. I go to sleep. So I get 8 hours of sleep a night, and he just went through the whole schedule for his entire day. And he's like, and that's how I train 24 hours a day. And it's just like, wow. So, even the most basic of things is still training for us. I mean, we don't, I think that coming from competing and doing things like that, I was used to training, 6 hours in the gym, just, soaked up in sweat and everything else. And the older I get, I realize I can actually adapt to that very quickly and do it in small sets throughout my day. And I can still get it done. I mean, yesterday I did 7 different little workouts, you know what I mean? And only one of them was easy. And that was the stick and dagger stuff you and I did, right? So everything else was, but it's doable, even the most basic of things.
That's cool. Who's up?
Oh, I guess it's me. So this one, okay, now I'm not a religious fanatic, but I'll give you a little backstory after, but it's ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door will be open to you. Matthew 7:7. Now, that's the only quote of the Bible I know. And I'll tell you what, when I was like maybe 9 or 10, I was staying at my grandmother's in New Mexico for the summer, and she enrolled me in a Bible school. And we had to do, you always had to do a little final performance. And so everyone had a quote in the Bible. And I remember I had to learn this one, and I was like so nervous to go up there. I had no idea what it meant, of course. But then now I look back in my life and I see how it impacts when we think about. And I think about this at prayer. A lot of times people get frustrated because they pray on something and it just doesn't show up, right? And then some people, they start to disbelieve. They don't think, the prayers are answered. But what I've come to understand, as I got older, is that, and I experienced this in my life, right? When we ask, things don't show up in material form, right? It comes with a brother or sister. They have something that you need when you ask. And then when you ask, you have to seek, because again, it comes in spirit form. It comes as someone who's there to give to you, right? And then you got to say, hey man, open up, brother. So here's what I found. And it's crazy how it works. I remember when we were remodeling the school, and one of my good friends, Tracy, you remember Tracy, you met her at the academy, Tracy and Lizzie, when you're there. So they're all helping remodeling, and Tracy and I were, okay, we got to find some cabinets, for the back and all that. And, so Tracy says, okay, well, we'll get the truck. I'll meet you. And all of a sudden, one of the parents wanted to talk to me, and he's like, I said, wait, but hold on. And I said, yeah, what can I do for you? He goes, well, I work at a cabinet place. We make it. And my boss says that we could donate all the materials and the labor. I mean, just pay minimal. I was like, whoa. Right. And so again, I would have not have received it. I asked for that. I said, we need to have cabinet. We don't have the money for it. I was asking for that. I was asking for the higher power to give to me. But if I would ignore him, God says, hey, you were asking me, I sent someone with you, but you just said no, right? And so when I started looking at my life, all those things that are happening, I said, the synchronicity, manifestation of things that we bring in, it really does come that. When we pray on it, or you got to accept that things come in that form. It's not like Janis Joplin singing, hey, Lord, give me a Mercedes Benz, right? It's about, it's showing up some way, some form. And it has constantly showed up in my life now. I realize that when I ask, okay, pay attention, who's coming to my life now? Because that person is giving me what I need, and maybe I have to give them something back, right? So here's what's going on in the world today. We're masking up, right? We're supposed to be building bridges, but we're building walls. I remember when we first moved here, we walked by and, you're almost hugging people. You're so close. Hey, neighbor, how's it going? And now it's like, whoa, I think I'll go off to this way. And it's like a beacon, like I was noticing today, we're riding our bike and I start coming, you start seeing people like they're kind of going off to the side, and everyone's like separating. And I was telling my wife, I go, it contrary to this idea of spirituality of connecting, right? All becoming one, this whole oneness of it. And we're separating. And when you have separation, I mean, that's really the definition of sin. It's a separation of God, right? And that's the connection that we all have. And what are we doing? We're sort of going away from each other. So I found that kind of interesting. And so that quote of the Bible always reminds me that, keep an open mind, because when you ask for something, it's not going to show up as a material thing. It's going to be in spirit. and that spirit's going to be able to help you out. And maybe you've got to give them something to turn. So that's mine. And that was my only quote that I had to learn when I was like 10 years old. Like, if you ask me anything else, I can't quote the Bible. I'm sorry. Well, maybe in the beginning there was the word, but that's it. Okay, go.
I like that. I like that a lot. You know, going back to the words and what you're hearing and all that, and going back to, you know, what you think. I mean, it's just this infinity loop that keeps processing right here. You know what I mean? Which I think makes a big difference. So that's cool. That's really, really cool. I honestly, I haven't really read the whole Bible. You know, I have a few quotes out there that I enjoy, but I for some reason I either must have like missed that one entirely or whatever. But that's awesome.
There's so much wisdom in there. I mean, you know, you think, God, way back, you know, whether you're a believer or not, I mean, it's the amount of wisdom. If you follow that, it really does help you. I mean, you know, if you look at the 10 Commandments, there's things in there that says, hey, I'm going to keep you out of trouble. Don't do this, right? You know, and when we break them, we're like, yeah, there's something about that. We should have paid attention, right? So, and it's like love thy neighbor even, right? You know, I live in a neighborhood. Sometimes people like, they're doing this and they're clashing. And I'm like, man, life is too short. Why do we want to do that? Right. You start having a little tiff with your neighbor, and now you can't just go out. You can't look at them, you know? And I go, that just, why would you do that? That's like I told Deb, I just always want to have a peaceful solution, because I don't want chaos in my life anymore, because it ultimately it's hurting me. Right. And so love thy neighbor. If doing that, you both kind of get along, that's great. Right.
Yeah.
Instead of hating your neighbor, which happens a lot, I think, with some people. So I hope my neighbor's not listening.
All right, Larry, give me one.
I got one from the man himself, the controversial man himself, Christopher Columbus, right? Yeah. You can never cross the ocean until you have the courage to lose sight of the shore, right?
Say that one more time for me.
You can never cross the ocean until you have the courage to lose sight of the shore.
Got it. Okay.
That's just like, boom. I mean, to me, it just speaks volumes of courage. I mean, you know, I'm a big, you know, person that's all about challenges. You know, my wife and I signed up for the world's toughest canoe race, you know, which is 260 miles, and you got to finish it in 100 hours or less. And we try to race, not just finish it. And we've been doing this now, and we really like it. But even, you know, outside of canoe season or things like that, being in the martial arts, you know, we're always kind of reaching for that next thing. You know, we're always kind of stretching ourselves a little bit further, whether it be an actual flexibility or application or round time or push-up reps or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So I find that fear kind of holds us back, especially fear from what our mind thinks is failure, which is typically brought on by outside sources, you know what I mean? And so I find it as a big difference, you know, that we can just, you know, just look away for a second from land, that we might, you know, see that heavenly glory, and then we might be able to push ourselves, you know, beyond our limits and make something happen. I find that, you know, every time I get distracted or anything else, or I start thinking about the result or the end product of whatever I'm doing, I have to realign my focus onto something like this. And really just something I read the other day was just, you know, focus on the means, you know, forget about the result, just focus on the means. And usually things kind of fall into the right place of where they're meant to be.
Well, weren't you the one who gave me the quote of being out on a limb?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same thing, isn't it? Kind of the same story. Yep. Say that one, if you know it. Going out on a limb, isn't that where the fruit is?
Yep. If that's where the fruit is. Yeah. Why not go out on the limb? That's where the fruit is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do that every time I have to steal fruit down at the Wigwam Resort, man. There's nothing like, I think I told you that before. There's nothing like getting free fruit. It tastes so good when it's free, right? And you go up, you catch it. And then I end up like, I told them, I gotta bring a ladder or something, man. And so I bring a cane. And I'm up there like reaching. I go, well, that's where the good fruit is, right? The low stuff is no good anymore. People took it all, right? But I like that, Larry, because, you know, you think about in the days where Christopher Columbus was, imagine when you thought the world thought it was flat, and you're going out there and you may go over and deep in. It took a lot of faith for them to say, hey, let's just go for it, you know? Or astronauts who went in space for the first time, you know? We've been watching For All Mankind now, and you think about, God, you know, they're going up in a rocket. They got all this rocket flying up, and they're having faith that they're not going to get blown up because it's happened, you know, and they're going out in space somewhere. I mean, I was telling my wife when I look at that, that's this extreme courage to sort of like let go, and you're out there and you don't know if you're coming back, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go. This is a long one, and I know everybody knows it, but I've got to say it. It's Theodore Roosevelt. You know where I'm going?
Yeah.
All right. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the stronger man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcomings, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he falls, at least falls while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold, timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Roosevelt. I love it. It's powerful. I have that quote in a frame, and it's brilliant, I think, and I try to live by it. I've fought in the ring. I've done a lot of things, and I'm not the best at it, but I tried. And versus the guy who's sitting on his couch, slamming it. I'll go back to a story. I have a friend, Sean Shelby. He's the #2 guy at the UFC. I've known him for years. And believe it or not, Sean, before he got involved with Dana and the UFC, he was doing film work. He was a behind the scenes guy, more in film. He was in the Three Ninjas with us. He worked on that show with us. And he had gotten me 10 tickets, and I brought all the guys to Cold Steel for I think we had front row or second row or something like that. It was awesome. And I just remember sitting there and watching everybody just tear apart every fighter in that ring. You suck, and just jeering, I guess. Would that be the right word? Or just kind of just putting everybody down who they didn't like. And I just thought, how could you say this guy sucks? You have no idea what this guy went through to get that, to get his butt in that ring, and just how much work went into that. And, it just bothered me. And then I remembered coming up in the fight game, I had fought under a couple cards, and one guy got taken out in probably under 30 seconds. And he was so down on himself. And I'm like, so what? I go, you got yourself in the ring. At best, the other guy got to put his arm up in the air and say, I won. Did he really win? What did he win? Is it real life? It's not, and would it have been different? It could have been different on the street when there's no rules, when there's no ref, when there's no mats and ropes and time limits, and there's not glass or gravel or stuff to pick you up. That's a different game. And that's a different arena, but I'm just talking about the courage it takes. And if you do fall, so what? At least like he said, you fall daring or trying, while there's so many timid souls out there that don't know victory nor defeat.
I'll add that, when you go to a UFC match, and these people behind you yell, oh yeah, choke him. Oh, I can't believe you got it. It's like, I'm thinking, yeah, you have never went in a cage, right? When I was 56 years old, I was, down at American Top Team. I went through their level instructorship. And one of the things, you had to do 5 rounds in the cage. And so, I'm the old guy. I go in and I'm going at it. And there's this young guy I'm fighting, he's sparring, but he's making it real, right? I mean, he's on the ground, he's starting ground and pound. And I'm like, goodness, man, I'm beating the crap out of him. They're like, whoa, Linderman. I go, well, guy's trying to take my head off, right? But, I went through all 5 rounds. And then I remember Laborio was talking to somebody, I won't say his name, but he wasn't going to give him the level 2. But he said, well, look at Linderman, man. He's 56 and he did all 5 rounds. He didn't stop. You guys took a break. You came out. You didn't do all 5 rounds. Well, man, I know what it's like to be in the cage at my age too. And I mean, you're winded and you're trying to do it. And all of a sudden you're trying to punch and you got these spectators who never got in there. They don't understand that. Right. And I remember, and the guy, I'm not going to say his name, but one of my guys, I was training him for amateur fights. And he made a comment once saying wow, he was watching BJ Penn and said, man, I could be in the UFC. I could take him. I go, hey, wait a minute. That's a champion who's going against someone else, and it's a title fight. He's being cautious. If he went against you, he'd wipe your ass, right? Because they don't understand. And I go, look, he didn't get there because he's not good, and when you get up to that level and there's a lot of money riding in, you're a little bit more cautious. If it was someone like you, I said he would just go take you out, right?
Well, he's just not, it's not a towing the line. He's plotting. He's like every military strategist does that. Patton did it. They're not just going to go march forward. They're going to say, wait, hold back. Let's hit the flank. They're going to gain this ground. But when they do, we're going to come, so there's a lot of plotting. Yeah. And guys just expect you to swing. I always love it too, when guys are like tied up and we're on the ground, you're locked up and they're like, do something. There's a lot going on. You don't feel it or you don't see it, but there's a lot of stuff going on just in that locking of each other. There's, and if you've never been in there, you don't know.
Yeah, that's good. It reminds us about those things, right? I mean, you got to get your feet wet. What's that? Inosanto used to say that too. You got to get your feet wet. You can't swim on dry land. Remember, he'd always say that.
Oh, I real quick, but before I keep interrupting Larry, and I know I do. I'm sorry, brother. There was a guy. This is probably 10 years ago. There was a guy. He was, Guru Dan does like 2-3 jiu-jitsu lessons a day, and then he'll go in class. I mean, he's like really, and he's back then he was in his 70s, in his 80s now. But this one kid was talking smack a little bit later, and Guru Dan wasn't there, but he goes, yeah, I went against him and I did pretty good against him. And somebody went, you're 23?
Yeah.
He's 77. And the kid was like, oh, you realize that age disparity, but Inosanto's still putting himself out there, and he's still putting him, subjecting himself into somebody else's pool and not being the big fish in his pond, and you got to appreciate that,
I remember you and we got done training. I was out there by you, and we got done training, and we went to, like, I don't know, some stir fry restaurant, right? We can get a bowl. And we're standing in line, and we've got, Inosanto shirts on, or maybe even Mars shirts, but they had, all the logos on it and everything. And so this guy, is not very tall, right? And we'll just say that he's doing this the whole time, right? You remember?
Looking down,
and he's all like,
yeah.
And he's like, hey, y'all train with Dan Inosanto, and so we kind of like turn around and look at this guy, and we're like, yeah, and he's like, yeah, he comes over to our jiu-jitsu school, and he's just okay, this and that, and da-da-da. And he's kind of ragging on Guru Dan, and I'm just looking at Ron, and Ron's just going, and he's going mean mugging on him, looking at me. He goes, and then finally, when the guy shuts up, Ron's like, yeah, well, you do realize my father-in-law is like 78 years old, and he's all like, yeah, he does really good for his age, like this and that. Like, Ron's just staring at him like through his soul, like, I'm about to rip you in half. And the guy realizes who he is, and all of a sudden he's like, backpedal, 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 backpedal.
Yeah. You got to put yourself in the arena, and if and a lot of people, what I realized too, I was in China, and they brought me out there to teach. I was there for a month teaching in Beijing. And I would jump in there and I would do everything with everybody. And I got to one point where I tweaked my knee out real bad. And there was a Shuai master teaching. And I love this guy. He was so awesome. He reminded me a lot of Yuri Nakamura, just in his, just go. And I couldn't go. And I remember, like, he said it, and I felt the ego kicked out. I went, he thinks I'm wimping out. I know it. And I just sat there, and I finally go, I don't care about my knee. I'm going to do it. And he goes, no, your knee's hurt. You sit. And I felt like, and it bothered me, because I thought of this quote, and I thought, I got to be in there. But I realized I still had weeks to teach there. And it was probably good I didn't go, because my knee, I have a minor tear in it. And I think it was just really acting up, but I had to play it safe. But I felt like, oh my God, I'm not living by my creed, but it was cool. But to end the story, there were a couple other instructors out there when I was out there, and they wouldn't do anything. All they would do is just kind of like tug on their black belt and show everybody how great they were. And you know, it's there's plenty of times I've fought even my students. I mean, go back to Troy Miller. He beat me in one of the cold steel challenges, and people are like, "Why, your student beat you?" And I go, "Yeah, so what? You know, his day, he did great. You know, I'll get you next time." But it's fun. We went out and had so much fun afterwards. It doesn't matter. I think that there's, I'll always respect the man that's in the arena, always, and I don't care how bad the outcome might have been for him. He had the balls to step in that ring, and all three of us have stepped in a ring, and you know what that's like, and a lot of you guys out there have. And I know that everybody who has been out there has sat there and did a little head snap when they heard somebody putting somebody down with just some really stupid retort, like what you went through with the UFC and like what I went through. The UFC wasn't the only place, but it was really bad there when I seen it. And I just thought, you've never felt somebody dropping elbows on your head. You have never felt, somebody on your neck, tightening that grip, and until you do, I think you should just maybe just shut up and listen or watch, enjoy the fight. Just shut up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, let's ride on. Cliff, you are.
Right. Okay. So this one goes, Commander Ned Muffler, right?
Oh,
EFC.
yeah.
Guy's amazing. And the fact his age, he's still in there working, right? He'll make these calls to me like, hey,
Explain who.
and I'm like, I know who it is.
Know him. Explain to those who don't know him.
Yeah. So educational funding company I started with my brother, Fred Dagerberg, years ago when I first started. He says, oh, you should join EFC. And I was like, okay, well, they're going to take 10% of what I make. And Fred goes, how much are you making now? I go, I don't know, like 3,000. He goes, but if you made 25,000 and they gave 2,500, it's almost what you're making now. Who cares, right? And I go, yeah, okay. So I joined it, right? And then within 2 years, I was like in the top 10, 28,000 gross. And, listen to Ned and Nick Kokinas, he was a real amazing guy for his time, because I remember hearing his marketing stuff and I go, oh, this wouldn't work and doesn't work, the intro thing. Well, Commander would always come out with these quotes or something, only got a minute, 60 seconds in, it didn't choose it, can't refuse it, but it's up to me. That's his personality, right? But the one I used to always like, he'd say, he goes, to know and not to do is not to know. And I thought, wow, that's true. How many times, you know it, but you don't follow through. Like you want to learn Wing Chun or something, right? And you know it, but you don't take action, then you can't say you're a practitioner, right? Or we talked about getting into the ring or getting in there and getting the experience. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I think about that one. And sometimes when my students, they don't follow something, I go, I go, to know and not to do is not to know, right? Because I already showed it to you guys. So you don't know it until you start practicing and working it, man. So you don't know it. Don't tell me you know Muay Thai just because you learn the counts, right? That's not Muay Thai. You're just kicking pads, right?
Yeah, knowing and understanding are two different things. I know airplanes fly. You might not want me behind, that wheel. So, it's just, and I get a lot of people who are always like the know-it-all at something because they've had it. Look, I've done a lot of sales for Cold Steel. I go to the shows with them and I do demos with knives and stuff. And I always find I sell a knife if I teach them something about it. Oh, push dagger. Well, with a push dagger, you're going to do this, this, and this. For a woman, you can't get it out of their hand. Oh, this knife. Oh, this is really a good knife for this. All of a sudden they buy it. And I realize that they regurgitate the story that I do because now they know, and they're applying. And if they don't fully understand it, they think that it's cool looking or whatever. I tend to see that people will walk away. But if you arm them with a little bit of knowledge, they'll always try to get it. And I mean, others with that one talking point, they're happy with it. I see a lot of people will come back to me and say, you know what else I've done with it? Or do you know that this does this too? And I realize they're exploring and they're going back to Werner von Braun,
well, it's like we know martial arts, right? But if you don't like learning the, Filipino martial arts, to know a little bit of it, but to really do it is you got to practice, right? To do, right? To know and not to do. You got to do the do part. And a lot of people just they do a little and they go run somewhere else and they go to another instructor, pick this up. They keep thinking they're going to get better because they're jumping around, but it gets down to sometimes you just got to spend time, like anything in life, right? With your marriage, right? Your marriage is not going to be perfect because, I tried it with this one, didn't work. Now I'm going to go try it with this one, didn't work. You got to keep getting deeper and deeper, working through both of your issues or whatever your likes or dislikes to make it really strong, right? I mean,
Don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat. Yeah.
yeah,
You
you got to do, man. It's not about this. I mean, just know it. You got to do it. You got to get down with it.
Yeah.
So anyway, let me just add this. There was this Korean master when I was working at Weyerhaeuser. He was kind of running the janitorial service, and he would watch my classes, and he sees me doing the Kali and the JKD concepts and stuff. And he was Korean Hapkido, and he came to me one and he goes, yeah, Master Cliff, he tried to give me words of wisdom. He says, when you look for water, you have to dig deep, deep. That's why Hapkido, he was trying to tell me, is like, you got to go deep. And I go, yeah. And I said, but my rebuttal was like, but if I'm digging in the wrong place, I might miss it. Maybe it's good if I'm going around a lot of places and digging to search for the water, right? I might be digging in the wrong place. And he's like looking at me like, okay, because he watched me demo, right? And he saw me, I'm hopping around doing this and this. And he was saying, he was trying to say, you need to do one thing, is what he's trying to tell me.
That reminds me of, there's a I Ching hexagram that's like, through repetition, all fear is lost, right? And it's just like plugging away at it, right? Got to keep doing it.
Yeah. So give us one, Larry. Let's do this last one, and then I'm going to do a couple honorable mentions. We're close to our time limit now.
Absolutely. I'm going to go with Rumi on this one. I've got about 3 of his compilations that I love reading. Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself. If you guys follow, Texas and everything we went through not too long ago with the snowpocalypse, I've actually been trying to go back and journal like every little step of what we went through each part of the day there, or the days. And one of the things that I told a lot of people is I said, this was a big test for you. It was a big challenge. And it was there to teach you what skills you have, what skills you don't have, what training you have, what training you don't have, what training you need, right? Maybe what equipment you need based on what you didn't have. So, ultimately in the end, what we needed to rely on during that time period was ourselves. And, we spent probably about 24 hours making sure that we were good here in this house. And then we went outside and we found all of our neighbors, and we just started spending time making sure that all of them were good.
Sure.
And, we cooked for everybody. We boiled water for them because we had a gas stove. We didn't need the electricity. For my family, since we camp a lot, it was like glamping, really. It wasn't too bad. It was still 42 in this house with just the fireplace running, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it was for a lot of other people,
To know each other in a different way, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So I think that's kind of cool. So, a lot of times you're like, I think I'm kind of clever, but, then you have these moments that you realize like, okay, I'm going to go back over here and work on myself right now so that I can make something else happen. Or kind of like you were just saying, like, if you keep switching from thing to thing to thing, you'll never really find out that wisdom inside of it. So,
well, and kind of added to it, and this is a big one with me, is, change the way that you look at things, and the things that you look at start to change.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all about that, right? Our perception starts creating our reality. And if you want your reality change, then you have to change your perceptions. And that goes back, my son, Kyle, Ron, I mean, Kyle, for years, I thought like, I don't know, he first started, he struggled in martial arts, and then he wanted to go to Japan. That was his dream. And I was thinking, yeah, he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it, and then he did it. I'm like, okay, it was me. It was my thinking, not his. I mean, that was his passion, his dream. And, he married a Japanese girl. He's coming down next week to say his goodbyes, and he's moving back to Japan permanently. I mean,
wow.
That's his success. That's all he wanted in life, is he wanted to move and live in Japan and have a Japanese wife. He did it. It's amazing. He did it.
Yeah, envision it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So, all right, why don't we do like just a few mentions, or like I've got 50 of these and I can't get them all out, and I'm going to end it. I'm not going to give it to you yet, but I'm going to end it with a Bruce Lee one. Got to. Okay. Seek the path, right? Okay. I always like Walter Payton. All right. When you're good at something, you'll tell everyone. When you're great at something, they'll tell you. And it reminds me of the Mung G, Dr. G, what is it? Well, I don't know if it's his quote, but he always uses it, but talent is God-given, be humble. Fame is man-given. Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Talent is God-given, be thankful.
Talent is God-given, be thankful. fame is man given, be humble, conceit is self given, be careful. And I always liked, I like that quote. I do that one from memory. I didn't look at it, but yeah, I like that quote. Give me a
That's
couple.
one of my favorite too. Yeah.
You have any?
This one I remember getting from Kovar once. I always remember he said, I better say so I don't mess it up. What was it? It was about, how did I get? Oh, you can judge a person's character by the way that they treat the least most important person, to, something like that.
Oh yeah.
You look at, sometimes you think this person's insignificant, but it's like Larry when he told the story when you talk to someone who's working, he says he's a grease monkey, but you're acknowledging them. Well, it tells a lot about your character, Larry, because you're acknowledging someone that other people might think, well, it's not a whiffing moment. It's not what's in it for me. It's what's in it for them. And you took the time, and that shows your character right there, right?
You know what you just made me think about? Diana used to work HR for Fox, 20th Century Fox. And when people would come in for an interview, like for a job, Diana would sometimes be up at the front and have to greet them. And if they were kind of mean to her, what they didn't realize was when she went back in, the first question that whoever, like she'd say, your 4:00 appointment's here, and say, how do you treat you? And that was like the first thing they wanted to know was, how were you to the insignificant people, or how that person was. So you're always being interviewed, watch out, because people are watching. And today, what is it? Today's, peons are tomorrow's bosses. I know I'm not saying that right, but there's a whole saying for that also. So you just gotta be careful.
Yeah. So be careful what you post on Facebook and social media, because people are watching
forever. Yeah. And we're all guilty of putting stuff up that we shouldn't have. But I mean, I'm trying, with age comes wisdom, and I'm trying to be more aware of what I do there. So Larry, you got any?
Yes, sir. I got another one that actually, what was that?
I said, we're gonna have to start hitting them quick. Go for it.
Yeah. This one I just pulled out this weekend. I finished Paulo Coelho's third book, Brita. And in the back of it, it had this quote that I thought was powerful. It said, "Be like a river flowing between opposite banks, such as a mountain and sand. On one side, natural tension. On the other, total relaxation."
Oh, that's pretty. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that. You know, that gave me like a big feeling of like, understanding control over what I don't have control over and what I do have control over, right?
Yeah.
And it makes you relax, and then, keeps you from being distracted by things that start to cause triggers and stressors and just everything else, right? So,
Since you're still on, Larry, tell us about the Caribbean camp.
Oh, yeah.
So close to the registration deadline, getting in there, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So we set up a bunch of tiers for this, which we thought was pretty cool. Both the Southwest camp and the Caribbean camp. Today is the deadline for the early bird pre-registration, which usually saves you $100 to $200 on the total registration, which is cool. Caribbean camp's coming up November 5th, 6th, and 7th of this November, right? So, and that's going to be kind of cool. We're going to be flying out to Cozumel, Mexico. The plan there is pretty simple. We're going to go out in the middle of nowhere, the beach, the rainforest, things like that. We're going to train there and then have adventures and excursions that kind of tie into that environment, which will be pretty cool. When we did this last November, it was awesome. We had to modify a few things, of course, because of COVID. So we're looking forward to kind of boosting this one and doing it exactly how we wanted to do it last time, which is nice. But I don't know if you guys are like me. It's like, we spend a lot of time on the mats, right? And then a lot of school owners and a lot of other martial artists, like we were talking about before, are distance learners. So they're in our organization or they're affiliates of ours, and they come all the way these distances, and they spend like 3 days training at a camp or 4 days training at a camp, which is great, but they never really get a vacation, and neither do their families, neither do their significant others, right? And so by having the Caribbean camp, our main goal with this is, we're going to train from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. The family can hang back, relax, have a good time, this and that. We're going to pick them up, get picked up, and then go wherever we're going or do whatever we're doing. So that way we can all get back together as a unit and have that fun time, and I don't know, it was awesome last time. There was about 14 of us coming out, through a kind of a thickness of the pandemic. We enjoyed it. We stayed safe. Everybody came back healthy, did a great job following safety protocols and everything else. And now as we're starting to kind of dive out of the fog, so to speak, of the pandemic and start to move forward a little bit with more confidence, we're looking forward to seeing this one full steam ahead.
Okay, well, let's start to
I
close
love
it
that
out
area too.
afterward. Well, let's start to close this out, and when we're done, you have like a little video to show them, right? A 2-minute deal. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that'd be great.
All right, so I said I'm going to end this with a Bruce Lee quote. So I'm going to go. I mean, there are so many good ones. I looked at it and I'm like, we should probably have 10 of these shows just on this topic or on quotes. But the Bruce Lee one that I love, and it's not a real well-known one actually, and it's, I am not a teacher, but a signpost for a traveler who's lost. It is up to you to decide the direction. And I always love that quote. And it's not a real well-known one. You know, like there's a ton of other ones, you know, be shapeless, whatever, all that stuff. This one I thought is it's different for me. And I thought it was pretty good. So
Hey, Larry, follow my finger.
I love that scene. I've written blogs after blogs about that scene, man. I swear. I love that one.
yeah. Okay, wait. I will give you one more. Diplomacy is the art of telling people to go to hell in such a way that they'll ask you for directions. Winston Churchill. So, all right, with that, gentlemen, let's start to close this out. Next week, we're going to have a guest on. We're going to have Master Fireboards Ajak. And if you don't know who he is, look him up. Team Karate Centers. He is well, outside of being an outstanding martial artist, his knowledge on just running a school or organization. I mean, I could go on. I got some really cool things that he's helped me with that changed me and how my approach to teaching. And
He's a great share. He shares everything in the martial art industry, man. He comes up with ideas and he's always sharing. He's a real giver. Great friend to have.
Yeah, he's not one guy who holds it for himself. If he learns something, it's like, do this, let's see what happens. And you know, for everything he puts out, he always tells me he gets 10 things back. So, you know, he lives by that code, but he's going to be a great guest. So we're going to have that same time, right? Same place.
Yes, sir.
And remember the book, there's a giveaway.
The
Guru
website,
Ron
any
book.
mentions before we close out? Website, May, we're still on target.
Yeah. May's the action, man. Check this out. Look. I got to juggle things over. You see this one? You see that one, right? You see that one?
And that is all hard.
Mars Online Training, baby. Mars Online Training right there.
So for those of you that have Mars Online Training, it's looking the same, but there's going to be some big changes coming soon. So
yeah. We're going to be flipping the switch.
I was filming yesterday. I filmed yesterday. We filmed all day yesterday. So
big thing is I know you guys talked about the book. That's probably the easiest way. I've been receiving a lot of friend requests and a lot of messages on Facebook, and we've gotten some posts in our forum group. There are two big ways that you can stay in the loop on this. The first, super easy, go to marsonlinetraining.com. Again, that's marsonlinetraining.com. And right there on the page, you can subscribe for news and updates. And the cool thing is that when you subscribe, you're actually getting a digital copy now from Ron Balicki on his book, Jeet Kune Do, The Principles of a Complete Fighter. So that's the easiest way, because we can email you announcements and things like that. But if you're a little more of a social media kind of person, which is cool too, you guys can go up, do us a favor, like the Mars Action Group page on Facebook, and then also ask to join in the Mars Action Group forum. It's actually a group on Facebook where we can post more and we can converse a little bit more and do things like that. So that's two big ways you guys can plug in and stay in tune for this release, and then anything else that we have going on Mars related.
Yeah. And it's important that we have your email, because as Larry said, down the road, there'll be codes that we give out. Sometimes we're running specials on some of the products that we have. So you want to stay in the loop, and that's the way to do it. And eventually, I think, when are we setting the day where we're going to actually put our Facebook Live on the Mars Group Facebook page? It's coming, right? We're going to be doing that.
we're almost ready for that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So the last thing that I want to bring up again, this Saturday, if you can, go on Facebook, you'll see the link, but Professor Salem Asli, or Asli, everybody says a different way. He was injured. He's my Savat instructor many years, 30, 40 years now. I've been with him. Awesome person, awesome martial artist. he got really messed up. So he's got a lot of medical bills, a lot of medical attention that he needs, and we're doing a fundraiser for him. So myself, Professor Nikolai Sunyak, and Professor Freddie Jin, Sifu Freddie Jin is coming in, and we're going to teach a 3-hour workshop. Each of us get an hour, and that no charge if you make a donation. So there's something to give, but we're gonna give you that. If you can't make that time, we are taping it, and it will be on the website, and you will, if you donated, you'll have access to that. So it should be good. Sifu Freddy is going to be teaching boxing and JKD boxing in Panatukan. I'm going to take double sticks since we're not doing any weapons. We're going to do like a lot of Lameko. And obviously Professor Nick is going to do Savat. So website.
That's going to be awesome.
Larry, there's a GoFundMe connected to it, right?
Yeah.
Sure, I'm posting it right now so you guys can pull up that GoFundMe. Make any donation, guys. Any small amount, any big amount, whatever you guys can spare would definitely help the family.
Yeah. So good cause, and good martial. Well, I'm not gonna speak for myself, but those other two guys are outstanding art instructors. So it'll be good. We'll make it worth your while. And all right, I'm signing out, gentlemen.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. And again, always feel free to share these. They're great if you can share our webcast.
And if you could roll that
Absolutely.
video, I want to watch it. So I've not had a chance.
Yeah.
I've seen only a couple seconds of it. So
Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
Here's the video. We're gonna run the video and then we'll be signing off.
The amount of time you get to spend with Nikolai and Dan and of course Ron, you can't really replace it. Most seminars you only get, maybe say 2 days, one person. This seminar you get Ron Bliki twice a day for 3 days, and then you get Dan and Nikolai, once a day for those 3 days as well. So it's really awesome.
So I traveled in from North Carolina to come here. Guru Ron is awesome. Professor Nikolai and Professor Dan Raju, they've all been great. Learned so much, and you constantly work and constantly sweat. It's so awesome.
Just from these 3 days alone has completely blown my mind. Very intimidating at first, but Ron, Dan, Nikolai, they talk to you. They impart their knowledge onto you.
I recommend everybody coming, even if it's just for one session.
Trapping and knife work. Two of my favorites, and we did a lot of them.
There's payment plans. In fact, I just signed up for next year, and I'm paying, it's just a special for right now, but a payment all across the year. So.
Well, this is my third Mars camp in general, and each camp is kind of hard to top, but it seems that every single camp I go to, it just gets better and better.
It's fun, but it's challenging, but it's worth it.
If you have no experience, if you're intermediate, you're advanced, you're going to get something out of this.
I would recommend anyone of any skill level, any style of art, to come out and train with these instructors because they are definitely top notch.
It was awesome because this is the first time that I actually noticed the idea is to do empty hand work, and then we do groundwork, and then we do weapons. So you basically cover the entire spectrum of everything that's in martial arts. So it's incredible.
One of the big things that Ann mentioned on that I thought was really cool was that there are payment plans. I mean, you could pay for your camp in one shot and save some money, or you can make it as low as about $32 a month Southwest camp, or about $80 a month for the Caribbean camp. So it's a steal of a deal. But again, today's the deadline, so keep that in mind. We'll have some other setups with the pre-registrations, but this is the best deal.
Awesome. All right, gentlemen, next week.
Hey, next Wednesday, guys. See you then.
All right, man. Signing off. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.